We had the Video Game Awards last week, and we've picked a few of our favorites to discuss.
Nick here to remind you to get 8 hours of sleep, lest you be Paul stretched.
Hi, I'm Josh, and this podcast is longer than the last Call of Duty campaign.
I'm Andy, and you're in for this shortest episode of Video Game Tango.
We're having a time
Yeah.
up in here.
2 noise floors.
Two noise
Come
floors.
on!
We are raising the floor of sound all
So-
the way to the ceiling.
Like I said last time, we're back with a full crew.
Yes,
Nick did
I'm
not go
here.
to Connecticut.
I didn't go to Connecticut.
Yeah. So we got some stuff to talk about.
I think
Let's.
maybe what's throwing me off is really having the not live feed.
Well, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're starting a little bit late tonight for you live viewers. You already know that.
We've got temporal difficulties.
Yeah. Just the old, faithful, lovely monitor that usually controls the podcast died.
Yep, the old Bismarck's Revenge.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
that
been
one.
boots and casting for months now.
True, yeah. I mean, it's been over here giving me regular seizures for like 6 months. Backlight's gone. It is what it is. So we had to do an emergency streamiotomy and hook up another monitor. Now it's over here, so I promise I'm not like dozing off. I'm just monitoring chat and doing the stream thing. So for those of you that can see me and watching YouTube, thank you so much for watching YouTube.
Oh,
So now its front light's
Amazing.
broken too.
Yeah,
Yep.
all the lights. They're
All
all,
the lights.
they're all broken.
light has gone out of its life.
So we have some video games to talk about.
We do.
Little something called the Game Awards happened. Geoff Keighley showed us some stuff.
He did.
Why don't we just get started with some video games, gents?
Alrighty. Am I starting us off?
You sure are.
Okay. There was a song way back in her long ago called No Rest for the Wicked. And apparently they made it into a game. That's not true at all, but they share the same title.
That's true. That is true.
I believe it is Moon Games Studio, creators of Ori, of the ever so fabled Blind Forest, have created a 3D, I'm not really sure, action RPG?
Yeah.
Diablo-like?
Looking a little Diablo-like, a little Dark Souls-like. It's got this flotsam and jetsam punk feel to it. There's some sea horrors and some stained glass windows and dudes wearing candles for robes. It's very pretty.
And everybody has giant foreheads.
5 heads.
It's they can predict the future. Hello Games, again, they made Ori and the Blind Forest, which if you haven't played, you are doing yourself a disservice. This is one of those games that I think everyone should play. Either the first or the second one. They come in remastered edition or original flavor, your choice. But it's one of those games where they have managed to blend the art and art style and art direction with the gameplay so well that you will be flabbergasted pretty much the whole time you play it at how amazing it looks. So now that they're branching out into a fully 3D game, that's ambitious. It's you're adding a whole dimension. That's a lot of dimensions to be adding to a game. And from what I see of the trailer, it looks like they are quite far along. A lot of the animations look very smooth. If I had to guess, coming out very shortly next year sometime, unless they provided a release date. Unless they're just trying to add content. But this looks exciting. I'm very happy to try anything that Moon Studios wants to put out. So that caught my attention.
Yeah, and graphically it looks fantastic, but something that I want to mention here is that this is one of the few game previews that we got that actually showed what looks like gameplay. We don't really have any way to confirm that. This isn't a gameplay trailer, but it looks like a top-down view of gameplay that we are seeing in the latter half of the trailer. So hats off for actually showing a little bit of gameplay and not just a cinematic trailer. That's exciting. So that it looks like they're going to have some kind of streaming event where they have a Q&A come March 1st. So it looks like it's still a ways out, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at a title that comes out sometime next year. especially that they're having like a big Q&A early in the year. So I wouldn't be surprised. No official release date yet, but so far looks fantastic. I will make sure to link the trailer for you in the podcast notes. So make sure you check those out. And moving on to our next one, Josh, you got one for us.
Yes, I do. So, Spider-Man 2, wildly popular game. Honestly, all of the Spider-Man games recently, super popular. The the Guardians of the Galaxy, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy game. Oh, I played it. I loved it. A lot of fun. So anytime a Marvel property is coming to the game, the video game media, I'm excited to see it these days. Now, Blade is a super, and that's the game we're talking about here, is Blade. Blade is a super exciting property, and I feel like it just fits in for this genre. So this is going to be a single-player, third-person game, and it's going to be set in the heart of Paris. So it's Blade. He took this tour worldwide. He's going to Europe to take down, some of the oldest and creepiest European vampires. Now, we don't, it's super early on in development, and now this is being developed by Arkane Studios. They developed Dishonored and Deathloop, and the recent stumble, Blood Rain? Redfall, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Redfall. Ooh. So, but Dishonored and Deathloop.
Yeah.
Also, right? The game is in super early development, so we're probably not going to see a lot anytime soon. No release date or anything like that. But it is exciting to have this on the slate, especially with the upcoming Blade movie or series. I can't remember if it's one or the other, but we're supposed to get one of those too. So I'm glad to see Blade making a comeback. That's just good news.
For sure.
That's all. I mean, you guys saw the trailer.
Property.
What do y'all? I mean,
yeah.
It's super, like, all it is
it's
a
like
cinematic.
The first real wave of superhero movies, right?
Yeah.
They kind of kickstarted that whole
Really
thing.
did.
I don't think we'd have Ant-Man up Thanos' butt without Blade.
That's true.
Yeah, Blade and next,
It'll be nice to see Blade being used for something, because since the movies, he's been kind of a Marvel fan favorite, but there hasn't been anything since the Wesley Snipes movies that I'm aware of. Yeah. So getting him in his own game, that's cool. I think there's good possibilities to be had there, like a Devil May Cry style game would be right up Blade's alley, right? That's essentially what you got in the movies. That's essentially what you got in the comics. So something like that, I think, could work really well. If they make a really tight action game, I'm into it. I like Blade.
I'm honestly kind of imagining something akin to, again, like the Guardians of the Galaxy game had some tight, fun combat. Where you're zipping around, you could be very fast paced, zipping around, doing it felt very fluid. And a lot of the times you just rolled from one fight into the next. And I could see something like dark and violent, something like a cross between like a Spider-Man combat and God of War combat, where it's just like it's vicious and brutal, and the finishers are going to be brutal,
Space Marine combat too.
Yeah, exactly. Something. I think it could be good. Really kind of bridging the gap between comic booky style whoop ass and a serious can of it, you know?
And one thing that hasn't been mentioned is it is like light cell shading as well that we saw from the trailer. And I think the art style looks good. They've got very angular features, all like a Samurai Jack style that I enjoy.
I didn't really pick up on that until you just mentioned that.
So, I mean, they're relatively humanistic, but it's like it's certainly got a style of its own, something that I think lends towards a comic book look, especially when we get our first view of Blade and him suiting up. I think that looks very comic book style. and really cool. So I think there's a lot of potential there. Hopefully Arkane Studios can pull this one out, unlike Redfall.
I mean, their last vampire thing was not.
Yeah, there's reason that you could be skeptical.
Yeah.
But yeah, this, exactly right. Let's do a vampire game justice. Now,
we are all familiar with Larry David. When you think Larry David, what do you think? You think of that shrug pose he does where he goes, Yeah. That's how I feel right now about the next game on the docket, which is titled Light No Fire. This is being produced by Hello Games. Hello Games has made No Man's Sky. If you have been a gamer for the last handful of years, you're probably familiar with No Man's Sky's story. But in a nutshell, Hello Games promised the world and delivered a plastic globe that was a globe of Mars. And they got torn to shreds for it. And they decided instead of giving up and trying to do something new or closing the studio down or whatever, they just put their nose to the grindstone and spent multiple years grinding away at turning No Man's Sky into the game that they wanted. And where it stands now today is a fantastic game if you like the kind of game that No Man's Sky is, and is in a completely different category than it was at launch.
Oh, yeah.
So with that said, they have produced a very promising trailer of what looks like potentially an MMO. I don't know if they say exactly how many players are in it.
They don't say MMO. They do say multiplayer experience.
Yeah, it looks like there's definitely at least 4 players in some kind of co-op in a, from what they seem to be implying, a very exploration, discovery-oriented, high fantasy setting. We see a lot of amazing, bizarre terrains and eldritch figures, lots of different mounts, flying, hooved, and otherwise, interesting characters of all kinds of different lineages, weird tech, weird magic, and this is the kind of game that like is right up my alley, but it's being made by Hello Games. Now, I'm going to assume, because I took the time to turn No Man's Sky into a fantastic game, that they are going to do a better job at release with this game, Light No Fire, than they did with No Man's Sky. But they really shit the bed with No Man's Sky when it came out. They've had time to learn, but burn me once, George Bush quote, shame on twice. It's rabbit hunting season, right? That's how the phrase goes. So yeah, what are you guys thinking?
Well, in the Game Awards, what they promise is scale.
Yes.
So they talk about how mountains will be the size of mountains and the mountain ranges will be the size of mountain ranges.
Very big.
Because in video games, when you see a mountain, it might look huge, but compared to a real world mountain and scaling it, it's nothing, right? It takes you 2 minutes to scale a mountain in Skyrim. Mm-hmm. It takes 4 or 5 days. It takes a better part of a week to scale Mount Everest, right? So I know that that's like the biggest one, but that kind of shows you the difference in scale. The biggest mountain in Skyrim is scalable in a couple minutes versus days of Mount Everest. And what they promise is something that is more akin to real life in its scale and grandeur in these worlds. I think it's doable when that is your plan from the get. I think that also this probably caters best to maybe a server size like Ark. It's very reminiscent of Ark.
I was getting the same vibes.
Yeah. I mean, even the art style seems very Ark too. We see what look like dinosaurs also and dragons and that kind of thing in the trailer. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is somewhere in the range of Ark, but on a grander scale. Even though Ark itself is already fairly huge.
If anybody wants to try to make an Ark that doesn't make me pull my fucking hair out, I am all for it.
Sure, yeah. I think we have clear reason to be skeptical, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they promised us a universe with No Man's Sky. Hopefully, bringing that down and promising just a really good Earth is something that they can deliver on day one. Because I trust that they'll continue working on it and making it the game they want it to be. But on release, is it going to be? Are we going to see No Man's Sky 2 Electric Boogaloo, or are we going to see a complete, fully thought out game? I have a feeling they probably learned their lesson. I think this is their second chance at something at this scale, like they promised with No Man's Sky. Will there be any trust left in this company? Because I mean, they lost it and regained it slowly over time.
Yeah. It's a long grind.
It is, and it has been, and hopefully they've put the development time and resources and schedule this game properly to have a full game at release. Just there's good reason to be skeptical. One thing that I do want to point out is I'll go back to the trailer here. The symbol for Light No Fire looks very similar to the one of No Man's Sky.
I was gonna say, I think that's the same iconography.
I mean, it is different, but it's very similar in the way it looks.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Yep,
so it looks like it follows a theme, and so does this game. If we're looking back at No Man's Sky, they're promising you a massive world, or in No Man's Sky's case, like a galaxy or a universe. We're getting a huge world here. At the end of the day, when we talk about No Man's Sky, these worlds that it generated were large, but nowhere to the scale of what it seems they're promising with this world. So
puddle deep.
Maybe with a slightly smaller scale, we will get a complete product, and that's my hope. Is that they just learned their lesson and they applied it into a new game.
They attempted procedural generation way past its prime.
Yeah.
Like we all believed the lies of procedural generation way back in the Will Wright Spore days, and now we know better that you can generate like a terrain till the cows come home, but there's not going to be anything to do in there. Starfield.
Yeah.
So
if it's uninteresting, if it's empty, if it has no feeling, if it has no depth, then what good is a giant universe, right?
And also, like Starfield promised, like, hey, you see something on that planet, well, you can go there. Well, unless it's more than 100 meters from a point of interest, because that changes virtually every time you land on the planet.
Yeah.
Or unless you build something there, right?
Yeah.
With this game, what they're promising with this game is something that I've always wanted in video games. I can go there. I can see it, so I can go there.
And I was gonna. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's. I mean, since I started playing like fucking Mario, like as a child, playing on the tube is like, man, wouldn't it be neat to go to that mountain over like, I want to get into the background over there because you kind of could, right? Like you could slip in a little bit. It's like, well, it'd be cool to go to other places. And then as game like playing Link to the Past, not Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, seeing shit in the distance and like, what the fuck's over there? But not like truly being able to get there. So like that's if they can deliver on that, that's kind of that was the thing I was most interested in,
I really think that's the big sticking point promise, like is current tech and their capability up to the task enough to do all these things like real-sized mountains and the like effectively and have actual game content there to be played.
Yeah.
Right? It's one thing to put a giant mountain in your game, but if there's nothing to do there...
Yeah. What purpose does that mountain have? If it's nothing, then it's just empty space. It might as well be a flat playing field. So, at least in my view, we do have other games to talk about. Josh, why don't you jump to yours?
I'm bringing one that there was a really cool trailer, but there's not a lot more on it because it's just kind of very early in development. So we, again, just don't have a lot on it. But it's a team of ex-BioWare developers are bringing their new sci-fi RPG, and it's called Exodus. It's in development at Archetype Entertainment, and the trailer revealed that you as the player, you're traveling through the universe, avoiding some sort of big bad enemy called Celestials. Anytime that word's thrown around in comic books and video games games on. So obviously you hear the Celestials, you think something powerful, old, large, and like that's kind of like we're getting some crazy tech vibes from this trailer. We do see a little bit of what's going on, but I have no idea what the story is about. Like they fell on a ship and then they find a thing, but the trailer is just all action and kicking off. But when it's a team from BioWare and they're dipping like rebringing me something in an RPG, I can pick up and take notice. Now, another interesting thing about the game is Josh Brolin is narrating this. So I think he's voicing some characters in it. And they had Matthew McConaughey introduce it at the Game Awards up there with Geoff Keighley. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and he said that he's voicing a character in the game as well.
Yeah. So flying through portals. I think there's some time dilation thing going on, like that they talked about.
That's really the gist of the trailer.
Is a time some sort of time dilation. But man, I am interested to see more of this when it comes out, as and as they release us more tidbits and breadcrumbs.
I love that they got Matthew McConaughey to do another sad movie about time dilation.
Yeah, yeah.
And they also got him, and he also said, all right on stage. So those are my two favorite things.
2 nickels now.
Yeah, but our what seems like to be our main character, our narrator, is talking mostly about how he left his partner behind and how it's been, months for him, but years for her. And it seems like it's a story of trying to maybe get her back from the Celestials as they develop the technologies to combat them. So yeah, I think it could be really interesting. I mean, I loved Interstellar, and it feels like an action game based in Interstellar.
It looks Mass Effect-y.
It does look Mass Effect. Yes, it's high tech.
Yeah, I was saying, I got Mass Effect feels from it. And if you've listened to the cast once or twice, then you know how I feel about Mass Effect. I've bought that game like 9 times.
Yeah. Now, IGN does have a dev breakdown of the trailer that I would encourage everybody to watch. I don't think it is that necessarily informative, but they do show a little bit more gameplay. So I encourage people to look at that. I will make sure to put that in the blog as well. So for the standouts, I think that's pretty much it. I do want to go over a few others, and while I do that, we will watch the trailer for the new Hideo Kojima game.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's some exciting other things to talk about there too, definitely.
Yeah, so a couple things happened that I think were cool. They announced God of War Ragnarok DLC called Valhalla. They put that out as of the Game Awards. It was the next week. That means that it was actually put out yesterday. So they announced that and they just dropped it pretty much. The finals also dropped at the time of the Game Awards. So the finals is in version 1.0 and was primed and ready for the Game Awards for its release. That was also a surprise. Really nice. Another little surprise that we got was Sega had an announcement. They are working on
like 12 of them.
New old games. So
old games.
They're definitely trying to hit you with the nostalgia factor, but I'm excited to see Sega doing something. So they've announced that they're working on Jet Set Radio, Shinobi, a new Golden Axe, a new Streets of Rage, a new Crazy Taxi, and more. So that's something I think to be a little excited for at the very least. I'm just happy to see Sega jumping back into the arena. I hope that they can bring back the dynasty they were before. I mean, the Dreamcast is what killed Sega, but I loved the Dreamcast, man. It was the Xbox before the Xbox got big. It was a great console. It was looking forward into the future, affordable, and had some really great games. And Sega first-party games were good for a very long time. So if they can capture that magic again, I really hope we can see the return of Sega.
Dude, a new Golden Axe sounds so fun.
Yeah,
I mean,
right?
Like that. Oh, man.
I played.
You can play as a
I played
dwarf.
the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hit you with an axe.
Yeah. Another one, Mecha Break, I thought looked pretty neat. In this resurgence of mech games, I'm just excited to see more of them. It looks like the difference between a Devil May Cry game and Armored Core 6. It is just hectic and fast as hell.
Juggling.
And that's cool. So it's got speed that most other games don't touch. I think it's nice to get that variety, and I love fucking giant robots, man. It's the bee's knees.
from the trailer. That's what I liked about it was the scale. I felt from the game, it looked like I was in a Pacific Rim Jaeger, right? It felt like it felt
well,
big.
except for it was fighting.
It was fast. It was fast.
Stupid fast.
But it felt big.
It did feel big. Yeah, I mean, from the trailer, which does actually show some gameplay, looks neat. Another quick shout out to The Last Sentinel. All we got was a cinematic trailer, but that looks interesting. We got robot caretakers taking care of what seems to be children in a post-apocalyptic future where robots are hunting down humans. And the trailer, I think, was really good. So that's kind of my last shout out there. Just wanted to give some love to the games that we're not going to really put in the spotlight. There was another one that I wanted to talk about, and I don't remember what it was. Oh yeah, the guys that made Untitled Goose Game are making a new game, and I wish I could, for the life of me, remember the name of
Big
the
Walk.
game. Yes, Big Walk.
Yeah, it looks like a competitor to Light No Fire.
Yeah, totally. It's got big sprawling worlds, but these really weird claymation-looking duck creatures that you play. And Untitled Goose Game was a really oddly good fucking game.
Yep.
They turned something that should have been so mundane into something that was legitimately fun and replayable and funny, and it had a lot of character. So I have faith that they can bring these characters to life and give you a fun experience in what seems to be a walking simulator.
It looked interesting. It looked really interesting, and plus, anything that has co-op or you can play with your buddies, I'm willing to give that a look-see anyway.
Yeah, and interesting is the word. As far as gameplay, I don't know what that looks like. It looked like a cinematic trailer of potential gameplay. So I'm not some kind of weird trailer hybrid. And I look forward to seeing what that's all about. I like seeing people do something new in the game space. So I always want to give a little shout out to somebody doing something adventurous. That said, I think that pretty much wraps up the Game Awards. It's always a pleasure seeing Hideo Kojima come out on stage and announcing a new project with Jordan Peele, OD. We don't have really any information about that other than it's a new type of media.
Right.
But Kojima has said that about every work he's made since Metal Gear Solid 2. So yeah. So I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be a probably a really cool video game.
Yeah. One more little thing from the Game Awards. Christopher Judge faced some backlash for his little joke he threw out because he, last year he had an 8-minute speech where even though he talked for 8 minutes, he forgot to thank his wife and all of that. Ooh. So he made a little bit of a joke there. He was very, wrapping it up. And he's like, "Fun fact: my speech last year was longer than the Call of Duty campaign."
Ooh.
And it got some laughs and some, gasps. But then there was some backlash on Twitter, because I'm not going to call it X. There was some backlash on Twitter from Call of Duty devs saying oh, imagine, people only playing your game one time, that's that was a dig at, God of War. But it was, they have since a lot of these devs have since walked it back and deleted their tweets because they were facing some judgment on their clapbacks. But just a little bit of drams from the Game Awards that I found really funny, and Christopher Judge is just delightful. So
it takes a lot of balls to say that in a award show like that.
Yeah. Well, so I think that is about it for the Game Awards. Didn't want to do a whole podcast about the Game Awards this year. Happened 6 days ago. We figured most of you have probably watched a lot of the trailers and stuff, but wanted to talk about our opinions on some of the upcoming games and stuff that really kind of tickled our jimmies.
Yeah, because I wasn't here to watch it with you guys, so it's nice to be able to go back through and check out some of the games and trailers and whatnot.
Well, yeah, we definitely wanted your take on some of that stuff there.
Yeah. So it looks like we're probably going to wrap up there. So short podcast this week. I'm going to have a full write-up about the day before next week.
Okay. Do you want to touch on it at all or leave it for your write-up?
Well, we'll leave it for the write-up for now.
It's probably worth a good long
It is.
dive.
And I think it's probably a segment that deserves the spotlight. We went on a little bit longer about the Game Awards than initially planned. We were going to kind of gloss over that, but at this point, I could go on about the day before for easily another hour.
Okay.
So, not sure whether we're going to do that this week or maybe we'll have something in between now and then. But I think it deserves its time in the spotlight.
All right.
Because man, what a goddamn bungle.
Yeah.
So I'm sure plenty of you guys have heard some stuff here and there about how good or how bad it was. Whether it's real or not was in question mere days ago.
Another week of time will give us potentially more insight into what happened.
Yes,
Right.
We've gotten some crumbs for sure. One thing that we will definitely be hitting on is the company that developed it, Fantastic, has announced. So we'll get back to that next week. For now, you have been with us for Video Gaming Tango.
And I have been with you for being with us.